students, let's start. See, if you go by the nature of the units, so every unit has some underlying philosophy that demands, or that you can say clearly conveys the overall demand. In the sense, what this unit expects from you, or what this unit tries to convey you. For example, when we say ethics and human interface, it basically about, you can say, two things: essence and moral reasoning. Essence is all about two things. What is ethics and why ethics? In what is ethics, it's not about philosophy rather than ethics in action. And that's why here everything moves in and around solution seeking, its importance in providing the solutions, alternatives, evaluating situations, evaluating issues, evaluating different stakeholders, interest, claims, etc. Fine. It's also about critical thinking. It's also about regulating human behavior, etc. And why ethics is basically, you can understand it through the consequences of ethics. Consequences of ethics. As I discussed, that we are living in a trillion world economy, which is dominated by or controlled by, you can say, the MNCs, corporations, as they control more than 51%. If you take 150 MNCs, control 150 MNCs controls 51% or more than 50% of the world economy. So simply you just think of it. If it is not governed well, then you have example of Enron, you have example of Volkswagen, you have example of Boeing Max, you have example of Lehman Brothers, you have example of Arthur Anderson, you have example of Satyam, you have example of Lehman Brothers financial crisis, etc. So the point is here, once you understand, you ask why ethics, because most of the time whenever we talk about this paper, largely we think from high moral plateau. हम उस perspective से सोचते हैं. It's not. You have to bring more and more practicality into your answer by understanding the limitation and constraints within which we have to respond to the situations. And so here two things you will have to understand: the relation between the concept and the context. Here you will find that this paper is not concept heavy. This paper is not concept heavy in the sense, since it is ethics in action. So in 2013, 14, 15, they asked more and more about the concepts, keywords. But from 2019 onwards, it's more about the context, application, applied ethics, etc. And that's why I say it's not concept heavy. अगर ये philosophy का पेपर होता तो concept heavy होता. Since it is ethics, more into the ethics in action, and that's why it is more into the application part. Fine. So let's now come to the moral reasoning. When we talk about moral reasoning, basically, if you look at your syllabus, there is one word that is called dimension and determinants. Fine. Dimensions and determinants in the first unit. To understand it better, you can use it in a different way by you can say creating an umbrella concept, that is moral reasoning. Moral reasoning eventually talks about the moral theories, and also you may call it theories in ethics. So whatever terminology you use doesn't matter. Basically, here our purpose is to use different theories to understand the basis of moral reasoning. Fine. To understand, use different theories. Fine. And how it is going to be a basis for moral reasoning. Fine. This is what it is. So just write down the certain aspects about the moral reasoning. How we are going to do in the sense, we'll pick one by one theories, fine, and then we'll go for the question answer also simultaneously. And you will get these kind of sheets for every unit. Fine. Either it is going to be of 50 questions or 25 questions. This is other than the test. It is not for the sake of the test. It is basically to help you to map your concept without consuming much time. So by making a slot of 10 to 15 minutes or 20 minutes gradually, you can create 3-4 slots like this. And here 50 questions I have created for the essence of ethics. So it's basically very, very easy topic. Very, very easy questions. It doesn't demand, you can say, you don't have to write again, I'm saying. You have just to read it and recall, reflect upon it. So that you can start developing a common connections between whatever you have read, from society to history, history to polity, polity to governance, governance to environment, environment to paper 4 to you can say the current affairs. Why these common connections are not developed? And since it is not developed, often despite having so much of the content, sometimes it gives you a sense that you don't have enough content. It's not that, it's there. Since you have not visualized it, since you have not done any deliberate attempt for developing a common connections, a deliberate attempt to recall, a deliberate attempt to, you can say, make yourself more organized. That's why it is somewhere here, but it is scattered. Since it is scattered, it's giving you a sense of uneasiness that something is missing. That's it, nothing else. And to answer these queries, this is there. Fine. So we will almost, you can say, 300, 400 or more than 400 questions we are going to, you can say, do through the reflective exercise. Just thinking, nothing else. Nothing else. You don't have to pick pen. Again, I'm saying you, the whole purpose of this is to bring clarity, map the concept, and arrange everything here. That's it. It's not about answer writing, structuring answer writing. We are starting from today. We will do some class exercise and then followed by the test. So this is how you will get it this one. So yes, please. Yes, of course, yes. Then okay, obviously you flip something or you search. Obviously. Basically is here what his question is, if we forget or if not able to recall, then what to do? If you have conceptual some doubt, you can directly connect with me. You have my phone number. This class is all about mentorship only. So you can directly connect to me. You search it wherever you are able to, you can say, lack clarity. कि नहीं मुझे मनोज से बात करनी पड़ेगी, clarity नहीं आ रही. You give it a call to me. No issue for that. Again, I am showing you the basic purpose is here, that how this class will go. Everything. Number one, we'll create a framework. Just a quick reminder. Number two, reflective exercise. Number three, PYQs. We'll map all the concept through the PYQs and the test. These are the 4 components. Fine. Through these 4 components, we'll make sure that you are very, very comfortable in 250 marks. That's as simple as anything. As simple as anything. Again, I'm saying you please take care of your rest of the areas. In the class itself, from today onwards itself, you will realize it, that you are moving now. Fine. let's come to the point. So we were discussing moral reasoning. Write down the key points of the moral reasoning, then we will start. Point number 1. Moral reasoning refers to the process of making moral reasoning refers to the point. Moral reasoning refers to the process of making judgments and decisions. Judgments and decisions about what is right, what is wrong. Based on ethical principles, values, beliefs, and beliefs. It involves the logical evaluation of moral situations and the application of moral principles to determine the appropriate course of action. Fine. So carefully, if you look at the one word that is written here is logical evaluation. Is logical evaluation of moral situations. Logical evaluation of moral situations. If you look at your answers, since you all are writing mains and must be writing at home or whatever practice you have done, the first and the basic limitation in this paper is clarity. Clarity in the sense, since it is not fact, figure or information heavy, so you cannot play with this paper like geography, economy, etc. It's normative. So sometimes or often you can say it appears that this is subjective and whatever my thinking is, whatever the way I am able to say it is correct. It is correct. Fine. This is generally. So that's why here this unit, whether they ask this question directly from the moral theories or not, but the entire paper, you can say entire paper answering this paper, entire paper, right from the first question to the case study, based on three things. Number 1, essence of ethics. Number 2, moral theories. And number 3, moral thinkers. If you understand these things with great amount of clarity, whether they ask or not directly question, but you can sustain the quality of the answer, even in the case study. Because the way you make argument, the way you support your opinion, the way you seek solutions and apply to solve problems, fine, it demands some kind of support to your argument. That's why it is there. So when it says that logical evaluation of moral situations and application of moral principles and application of moral principles to determine the right course of action. Fine. So there are three things when we talk about the moral reasoning. Logical evaluation. Once we discuss this, then we'll start the moral theories. Logical evaluation, moral situation, moral principles, course of action. So these are the four things around which you create your arguments. You justify. Because whether they ask directly that to justify XYZ question, whether they ask or not, justification has to be there. Justification has to be there. For example, I'm coming to the point. Fine. Let's say I say you are a senior police officer, very upright. You are a senior police officer. Listen carefully. Very upright. You are very famous. You are so famous. Wherever you go, your name reaches before Sahab aa raha hai. You are so upright. Fine. There is an occasion of your daughter's marriage. Fine. And on that occasion, one notorious criminal comes to you, asks you that he wants to bless your daughter, but he is uninvited. This is notorious criminal, happens to be from the ruling political party member. He is uninvited. Fine. There is a large gathering. Throughout life, you have maintained a distance from these kind of people. Because your reputation speaks, your image speaks about you. On this occasion, when he asks that he wants to bless your daughter, what you will do? The first thing is what you will do. Second thing is why you will do so. Okay, what's the name? अच्छा अंकित. अंकित कह रहा है कि I will not allow. क्यों इतनी नाराजगी क्यों है यार? So you say I will not allow. Okay. So it affects your principles. Okay. Anyone else? What you will do? बताओ यार. He simply says that he wants to bless his daughter. Yeah. You will allow. See, this is what this paper is. You are saying you will not allow, he will allow. This is what this paper is. If you talk to your peer group, you will find often there are disagreements about this. Here, there are disagreements. Course of action that you will follow to solve certain issues, to settle certain issues, to solve certain problems, to solve certain dilemma, etc. Fine. So Durga is saying, she is online, she is saying, in order to avoid further problem in my daughter's marriage, he will avoid. Okay, fine. And interesting, some other students are saying that they will allow. Interesting. So, okay, Durga gives the thought and she says that I think I would allow. So abhi dilemma hai chal rahi hai. They are not settled. Why I'm asking this question? They may not ask you these kind of questions directly, but somewhere you need to understand that whenever there is a course of action, this is what the logical evaluation will be. So you do the logical evaluation of the course of action that you follow. And certainly you will apply certain moral principles to solve the moral situation. Moral situation. This is what the moral reasoning is. And that's why we read moral theories, or you can say the theories. They may not ask you the direct question, may not, because talking about UPSC, that what UPSC expects, this is the biggest foolishness in the part of anyone, be it coaching, be it topper, be it social media, be it anything. Never ever talk about what UPSC expects from you. There is a framework that is called syllabus. You get framework from the PYQ, create a broader framework of the subject, and you do justice with it. That's it. ज़्यादा बात करने की जरूरत नहीं है साहब. यूपीएससी के बारे में जितना कम बात करें, जितनी क्लैरिटी रहे, उतने chances better होंगे. That's it. So this is what it is. Fine. Am I clear through this illustration? What does it mean by moral reasoning and why we need to do deliberate thinking about the moral reasoning to ensure better clarity in the answer? Am I clear? Am I clear? Okay, fine. Pardon? Ankit, I'm coming. So Ankit is saying that how you will evaluate and what you will do. See, you will have to, once you go for the course of action, you will have to think of few things. Number one, in this case, number one, what are the alternatives? And what are the possible consequences of those alternatives? And then what is the, you can say, bring least harm in this case? Least harm in this case, where you think that it doesn't bring disrepute to my image, or also there is no ruckus on this auspicious occasion. So here you have to think for the alternatives. Ajay, it's not about solving problem on personal level, society level, etc. This is not the way to think to solve the problem. Here dimension does not mean logical, here dimension does not mean social, economic, political, etc. Here simply is you have encountered a problem on this auspicious occasion. Fine. Now, first you need to understand why this problem is. Is it for your personal reputation, or you don't want to bring any disturbance or want any disturbance on this occasion, or something else? So the first thing first, once you go for any course of action, the first thing is basically you need to understand what does mean by problem here. Why you are facing a problem here? Is it an ethical dilemma? Is it just because you can say everyone is here, so it is a problem? What it is exactly? Then only you can think of the alternative, na? अल्टरनेटिव तो इंडिविजुअल हो, सोशल हो, XYZ हो, जो भी हो, अल्टरनेटिव तो आप तब सोचोगे ना जब आप क्लैरिटी के साथ प्रॉब्लम देख लो कि दिस इज व्हाट आई वांट टू सॉल्व, and then only you will apply course of action. And you can say, once you talk about the course of action, you need to think about the consequences. That what if I this, then if I do this, then what? Consequences क्या हो सकते हैं? तो consequences के basis पे ही तो आप decision लेंगे ना साहब. This is what the moral reasoning is all about. And then make sure that every answer in your question should bring maximum clarity. There should not be any doubt in the minds of the examiner. आके आप कहना क्या चाहते हैं? On what basis you are saying? Today morning I was correcting the copies, and in one copy of essay I wrote 4 and 5 times. What is the basis of saying so? What is the basis of saying so? What is the basis of saying so? In the sense, it's not your personal space. It's not your personal space. It's a formal examination where whatever you are saying, you have to substantiate either through the theories, either through the facts, either through some case, examples, etc. so that your view, opinions, etc. are well received. It's very clear, very simple. I will bring, you can say, a lot of questions. Again, I am saying you, this is why I have created this sheet, which is very basic. What is ethics? 50 question on what is ethics. More and more reflect, more and more, you can say, the confusion you will encounter, and more think, and clarity will come, clarity will come, clarity will come. Again, I'm saying you don't have to write. It will bring clarity. And just see 2, 3, 4 tests. That's it. Nothing else. You will confident कि ये पेपर हो जाएगा. क्योंकि ये पेपर सिर्फ और सिर्फ इंफॉर्मेशन और कीवर्ड से नहीं हो सकता. नहीं हो सकता. नहीं हो सकता. Fine. Let's come to the point. Fine. So so let's go to the, you can say now, moral theories to make moral reasoning more clear in terms of the concepts. So when we talk about moral theories or theories in ethics, there are 3 broader categories. There are 3 broad categories. Number 1 is consequence list. Fine. Consequence list. Write down first point very quickly. I will give you just 2-3 points. 2-3 points. Rest I will give you in writing. Writing in the sense printed. Very brief, so that you just go through it. That's it. Nothing else. Very, very brief. Here I am dictating certain, you can say, certain points just to have a clear-cut framework on the basis of which I will throw certain questions. I will discuss it, and then we'll make sure by the time we go to the test next, you can say, in the next class or day after that, you have maximum clarity of the unit 1. पहले हम 5 क्वेश्चन करेंगे, फिर और 5 क्वेश्चन करेंगे, फिर 5-5 क्वेश्चन करते चलेंगे, फिर फुल टेस्ट करेंगे. Fine. So consequence list. Write down the first point. Consequence list theories. Point number 1. Consequence list theories. Consequence list theories, also known as consequence list theories, also known as teleological theories, also known as teleological theories, comma, are ethical framework, that focus on the consequences or outcomes of actions when determining their moral values. These theories hold that the morality of an action is determined by the overall consequences it produces. Overall consequences it produces. Fine. So we are talking about the moral reasoning within the, you can say, the umbrella of moral reasoning. We are talking about moral theory. It simply means that every theory brings certain basis of making arguments or make evaluation of certain moral actions. Fine. So हर theory की अपनी एक basis होगी. That's why it's written ethical framework. So all the theories that comes within the consequence list basically talks about that moral situations, moral actions, or any situation or any action can be evaluated whether it is moral or not on the basis of consequences, on the basis of the utility, on the basis of the outcome it produces. Outcome it produces. Fine. So first is within this is utilitarianism. First is utilitarianism. Fine. As name suggests, that utilitarianism is all about utility of the utility of the action. It talks about utility of the action. Now, when we say it's utility of the action, one needs to understand the basic philosophy. So, two philosophers who popularized it, not you can say they were the first one to talk about. They popularized it. Bentham and Mill. They talk about the utility of the action will decide whether it is moral or not. Moral or not, any action. But the basic principle, or you can say the whole idea of utilitarianism first talked about Epicurus. A Greek philosopher, you can say some were in and around 3rd BC, who argued that the best life is one that produces least pain and distress. So whole principle or the philosophy of the Epicurus was one thing, the best life. He was talking about the best life. What is the good life is all about? Because if you do remember about the philosophy, why Socrates called father of philosophy? Because Socrates was the first one who talked about the importance of the ethics to ensure or to investigate or to bring quality of life. Because Socrates was the one who talked about ethics, or you can say the philosophy in the realm of human being. Initially, philosophy was more confined, concentrated, focused on exploring this universe. What is this universe is all about? More and more about the metaphysics. But Socrates was the first one who talked about doesn't matter yaar, ye universe kiska bana hai, dunya kiska bana hai, wo baad mein dekh lenge. The first and the foremost thing is that what makes life a good life. So if you look at in the contemporary time of the Socrates, Stoicism, Epicurus, here that side in the you can say the East China, Confucius, etc. They talked about the quality of the life. They talked about certain things that brings or that adds value to the life. So in that category only, you can say Epicurus was one who talked about the good life, and he said that good life is, you can say, or the best life is one that produces least pain and distress. It's as simple as anything, least pain and distress. So Jeremy Bentham took the whole philosophy and applied it, and you can say popularized the whole idea of utilitarianism. They converted the whole idea of it into the one thing, that is utilitarianism is one, that is simply greatest good for the greatest number, which produces maximum happiness, minimum pain. So they took the idea from their Epicurus, fine? And then Bentham created this theory. So Bentham's idea was basically based on the pleasure. But it was highly criticized because of the whole nature of the pleasure, because pleasure is often termed as short-lived. And so Mill comes and improves it, and he brings the concept of happiness into it, or adds happiness into it, and that's why we call it greatest good for the greatest number. Now, based on the happiness and the utility here, fine. Write down point number one. Utilitarianism evaluates any action on the basis of its utility or the consequences. It focuses on maximizing overall happiness or utility. Next point, utilitarianism is commonly used to guide ethical decision making, particularly in situations that affect large group of people. Fine. See, large group of people. This is why this is one of the most important reason you will find, one among the most important reason. That's why it is one of the most, you can say, the basis of public policies. And that's why it is most famous and suitable theory that helps the government to take decisions. Number one, it's very simple, very straightforward, that talks about the utility and the consequences. Government, whenever it deals not with the individual. Whenever it talks about the public policy, it creates or take decisions related to the developmental infrastructure, etc. And that's why you will find that it is one of the most important basis of the policy making, utilitarianism. So what it says, that if you have to create development projects, either infrastructure or hydropower or XYZ, if it creates displacement of, let's say, 100 or 5,000 people, but it helps the further development, and it is going to help the economic development, or let's say lakhs of people, let's displace it. इसको displace करो, rehabilitate करो, आप rehabilitate करो, compensation दो, job दो, whatever दो, but decision has to be on the basis of utility, consequences, larger number. That's why you have to, whenever any question related to this kind of comes to you, where you think numbers matters here, you need to talk about this. You don't have to go blindly to support it. I'm coming with the criticism also. But then you need to weigh pros and cons. You need to visualize the consequences, and then you need to bring out the questions. I'm coming with the certain questions to bring more clarity into it. First, you get the, you can say, the framework right here. Whatever doubt you have, ask more and more doubts, or in the sheet itself, as a footnote, you can keep writing the dots. After the session, we can discuss it. Because I always say that if you are in doubt, and if you are taking doubt from here, you are leaving this classroom with the doubt. It's my personal failure. It's my personal failure. Because clarity in answer will come only when your thought process is clear. And that's why you will find that often students are writing more and more, despite writing so many tests here, X, Y, Z, and they are not very satisfied. Because number of answers will not bring clarity. It's a thought process. Thinking will bring the clarity here first, and then in answer writing, you capture the thought process to bring clarity in expression. This is what it is all about. This is what the answer writing is all about. Fine. So, so the next point you need to understand why it became so popular across the world. Number one, simplicity and clarity. Number two, practicality. Number two, practicality. Number three, objectivity. Here, objectivity simply means it talks very straight about the greatest good for the greatest number. Greatest number. But it doesn't talk anything else. And that's why it's not subjective. It doesn't go with individual to individual, society to society, XYZ. It is you can say the basis of the moral reasoning is very simple and straight. Utility of action. Utility of action. That's it. Very simple. Then next is social utility. Social utility here simply means that it talks about the greatest good for greatest numbers. It doesn't talk about the individual. What is the criticism? Next, criticism. Number one, overemphasis on consequences. Overemphasis on consequences. Ignores individual justice. But so this is overall framework. Now it apply it in certain context or the questions. Fine. Take the questions now. First, write down the easy question. Now we will, what we were going to do now here, we'll start the you can say discussion of certain questions related to everything what we are discussing here. And we will, you can say, start with the simple question. We'll go to the complex question, 3, 4, 5 questions. We'll discuss how a good answer should be structured. Fine. और फिर अब हम जितने भी चीजें यहाँ करते चलेंगे उस पर कुछ क्वेश्चंस को हम क्लास में डिस्कस करते चलेंगे. I am giving you a simple framework so that we can discuss certain things. I am not dictating everything because there is in a crash course there is no need to waste the time. So that framework in any case I am giving in the form of text. तो हम जो बेसिक प्रिंसिपल्स हैं, आइडियाज हैं, उसको हम एग्जांपल के थ्रू क्लियरिटी करते चलेंगे, क्वेश्चन आंसर डिस्कस करते चलेंगे. You go through that text, enter into the test, write the test. I will evaluate your copy. Just do 1 to 1. Fine. और ऐसे ही हम एक छोटे-छोटे लूप बनाएंगे. Loop of unit 1, loop of unit 2, loop of unit 3, loop of unit 4, loop of case study. Small loop. So that rate of completion is very high. Rate of completion. For example, in the next class, the first unit loop is going to be complete. Number 1, conceptual framework is done. Number 2, enough discussions is done. Number 3, reflective exercise is done. And then the next class will do the test. उसके next day मैं copy evaluate करके आप लोगों को दे दूंगा. Fine. Just move. Next, write down the question. First question, which is very easy question. Let's start with very easy question. Then we will increase the difficulty level. How does utilitarianism define morality and morality and morality and ethical decision making and ethical decision making? Very easy question. What are the key points you will write? Very quick, go very quick. What are the key points you will write? What are the question? What are the points you will write? Greatest happiness? No. This is what this. You need to bring clarity. You will talk about the utility of an action. Fine. What is then utility is? Then you will talk about the happiness. Then you will talk about the greatest good for greatest number. Then you will substantiate with the example. Fine. So my simple submission in this context is number one, you need to be a little bit careful about the ordering. That's why I started with a very easy question. Very, very easy question. I'm coming to the, you can say, the difficulty level that really matters in the UPSC. But ordering is very important, number one. And number two, whenever you go for this kind of ordering, logical correlation is important. This is what I wanted to highlight, logical correlation. So, Ankit, a structure does not mean presentation. Generally, whenever we think of a structure, we think of presentation. And whenever we think of presentation, we think of some cosmetic beautification sort of thing. कि हम underline करेंगे, highlight use करेंगे, pencil से करें या black pen से करें या blue pen. No, not at all. Diagram बनाएं, flow chart बनाएं, not at all. Not at all. That should not be the question of concerns at all. Anything which makes you effective in expression and bring clarity is the best way. As far as illustration, etc. presentation is concerned, a very basic principle behind it is whenever you have to deal with the complex ideas, too many things, and you want to make it very simple and straight, then only go for any diagram or some sort of thing. Otherwise, जाने की जरूरत नहीं है, जरूरत नहीं है. आज ही मैं सुबह कॉपी देख रहा था, ऐसे की कॉपी में मैंने देखा डायग्राम है यार. सोचो कि लोग कितना प्रेशर में है सोशल मीडिया की वजह से. मैंने फ्लो चार्ट, डायग्राम, ये सब सारी चीजें देख रहा हूँ. Just think of it, how much under pressure and how much they are under influence of the narrative, which is no basis. उसका कोई basis ही नहीं है. उसका कोई basis नहीं है. क्योंकि अब अगर हम टॉपर्स को भी ले जिनका सिलेक्शन हुआ, क्या उनको ये पता है कि किस क्वेश्चन में उनको कितने मार्क्स मिले? नॉट एट ऑल. इट्स एग्रीगेट, इट्स एग्रीगेट. ठीक है, तो हर क्वेश्चन में उन्होंने डायग्राम बनाया नहीं होगा. ब्रॉडली एक अंडरस्टैंडिंग रहती है कि हमने ऐसा प्रेजेंट किया, लेकिन क्वेश्चन बाय क्वेश्चन बाइफर्केशन तो उनके पास भी डिटेल्स होते नहीं है ना. तो इसलिए एकदम बिल्कुल माइन्यूट डिटेल में जाके और किसी भी चीज को हम एक्सेप्ट कर ले बिना डिटेल में गए हुए, without going into the detail, accept it, it's not right. We need to be a little bit careful. Let's move to the next level of question. So Ankit is asking how happiness is related to the morality. Number one, see, when we think about the teleological approach, happiness is often equated with the pleasure, but it is very, you can say, short-lived. That's why it is often rejected. That pleasure cannot be happiness. There is a difference between pleasure and happiness. Number two, when you talk about happiness, happiness is a state of mind, number one. Number two, Number 3, it is when we say state of mind, or also it is living with the contentment. Number 3, it's a psychological aspect also there. Psychological aspect means there is nothing miserable until unless you think so. You think so. ऐसा कोई मिजरेबल है ही नहीं. जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल अगर मैं पूछूं कि भाई पूरे वर्ल्ड में तकरीबन अगर आप देखें तो 19 से 20 हजार लोग भूख से मर जाते हैं डेली. मरते हैं ना. फाइन. लेकिन अगर ये तुम्हारे सामने हो जाए तो शायद तुम्हें ज्यादा हिट करेगा. लेकिन अगर किसी कंट्री में हो रहा है तुम्हें दिमाग में भी नहीं आता है, वो बॉदर नहीं करता है अंटिल तुम बैठ के कौन से सोचो उसको. तो एक साइकोलॉजिकल स्टेट ऑफ अफेयर्स भी है दैट देयर इज नथिंग मिजरेबल अंटिल अनलेस यू थिंक सो. बट नंबर 4 वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, which is also a basis of the, you can say, in the Indian philosophy, that happiness has a societal angle. Why you can and how you can be happy when your surroundings are unhappy. And so it talks about happiness in terms of the consequences, in terms of the number, that a moral action is one which brings happiness to the maximum, which brings greatest good to the greatest number. Good is what here? Quote unquote. What does mean by good? Good is here equated with two things, utility and the happiness. कहते हैं ना greatest good for the greatest number. So good means what? बहुत basic सवाल है, बहुत ही basic सवाल है, but you have asked the right question here. Fine, go for next question. Can utilitarianism, मैं अब difficulty level धीरे धीरे बढ़ाऊंगा. Can utilitarianism can utilitarianism be applied to complex and conflicting moral dilemmas? Can utilitarianism be applied to complex and conflicting moral dilemmas? Why? Why not? Why? Why? Why not? बताओ क्या होगा आंसर. So the question is, can utilitarianism be applied to complex and conflicting moral dilemmas? Now, pardon? Why? Yes. See, in this type of questions, number 1, there are always two things which is attached in the question. Number 1 is concept and number 2 is context. Fine. What is concept? Concept here is utilitarianism. What is context? Is basically decision making in moral complex situation. Now, so what is the first task? First task is basically, or here it is also written, dilemma. Fine. So the first task is here. Either you start with the utilitarianism whose idea of reasoning and how it solves the problem, or number two, you bring clarity here. What does it mean by it? When it's written, moral complex situation or ethical complex situation or ethical dilemma or anything else. So it's a very simple, you can say, the idea. It does not carry any complexity in itself until unless there is an example. जब तक कोई example नहीं हो तब तक हम सो कैसे करेंगे? Fine. So here you have to bring first of all the kind of, you can say, the examples through which you can solve certain things. For example, vaccine problem. वैक्सीन में डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन में कोविड में हम किस बेसिस पे लेते थे हम लोग डिसीजन? यूटिलिटी, आउटकम, कंसेक्वेंसेस. उस समय हम सिर्फ रूल पे नहीं जा रहे थे, जो पहले आया है उसको पहले मिलेगा, ऐसा तो था नहीं. इट वाज नॉट द सिनेरियो. अदरवाइज तो आप हॉस्पिटल में तो यही एक्सपेक्ट करते हैं ना कि साहब महीने पहले आया था, कम है ज्यादा है, मुझे क्या मतलब है? मुझे क्या मतलब है? मतलब तो सिर्फ ये है ना, मैं पहले एडमिट हुआ तो मुझे बेस्ट ट्रीटमेंट मिलने चाहिए. इट्स नॉट द सिचुएशन. लैक ऑफ रिसोर्सेस. Because of the lack of resources, complexity arises, ethical dilemma arises, and then doctor or the, you can say, the medical fraternity has to decide on the basis of the best consequences, utility of whatever they are doing. So it's not about greatest good for the greatest number here. Utility first, to solve the problem, to see the foresee consequences. So here the question is very simple. The question is very simple. That talks about, can utilitarianism be applied to complex and conflicting moral dilemma? Conflicting moral dilemma का एग्जांपल है क्या आपके पास? बताइए. Can you give example of conflicting moral dilemma? Can you give example? So you want to talk about the reservation here. Okay, so आप बात करना चाहते हैं रिजर्वेशन में न्यू पीपल आएंगे, मींस इकोनॉमिक बैकवर्ड कैटेगरीज etc. No, not at all. Why Ankit, you want to go in the troubled water where you cannot make sure that your answers are presenting more clarity? Yes. My next simple answer to you, that whatever you write, make sure that it's a self-explanatory. Whatever you write, it's a self-explanatory. Until unless something is self-explanatory, you cannot leave examiner in the lurch of the questions. Self-doubt. No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. Fine. Don't go, Ajay, don't go in these kind of complex, very situation, very easy. This is why I told you. मैं जो वर्कशीट बना रहा हूँ ना, इसका रीजन ही यही है, सिंपल है. इट विल हेल्प यू टू, यू कैन से ब्रिंग क्लैरिटी. थिंक करो, कॉन्फ्लिक्टिंग सिचुएशन ना, कॉन्फ्लिक्टिंग मॉरल डिलेमा इज देयर इन एनवायरमेंटल प्रॉब्लम. क्लाइमेटिक चेंज है ना यार, देयर इज अ डिलेमा, कॉन्फ्लिक्टिंग मॉरल डिलेमा बिटवीन सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट एंड इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट मॉडल. है ना पैराडॉक्स यार. तो हम ट्रबल वाटर में जाएं क्यों? रिजर्वेशन में नए लोग आ रहे हैं, उसका क्या नतीजा होगा, क्या नहीं होगा, हम प्रूव ही नहीं कर पाएंगे इसको. हम इतने कॉम्प्लिकेटेड आंसर बनाएंगे. दिस इज व्हाट द पर्पस ऑफ दिस सेशन इज. एक आइडिया को लेंगे, डिस्कस करेंगे, विल ब्रिंग क्लैरिटी, ठीक है, और फिर आप जो टेक्स्ट में दूंगा उसको जस्ट फ्लिप इट, दैट्स इट। उसके बाद जाओ ना टेस्ट लिखो, देखो कैसे क्लैरिटी नहीं आती है। Will ensure that you improve in answer writing on the spot. Durga is saying that even we can think of the abortion. Fine. Mind it, we cannot simply write abortion or capital punishment or anything else. You need to bring clarity. Situation, the complexity of the situation is not the problem per se. Abortion में complexity नहीं है, अलग अलग situations में complexity है। जैसे सविता हाला पनवार का केस है आयरलैंड में, दिस इज वेरी अनफॉर्चुनेट केस, where doctor knew that she is going to die. She was also knew that it's a very tough situation now, but doctor cannot do anything because in Ireland abortion was banned that time. Now the same, you can say, country went for the referendum, but it's a complex situation. Why? Because doctor know that it's threat to the life of the mother, but law of the land does not allow anything to do in this case. Law of the land does not allow कि आप law of the land permit नहीं करती है साहब, complexity है ना. So it's very important, Durga, that whenever you write anything of such nature, the next target before you to bring clarity. I will keep reminding this, and will ensure that clarity in thinking comes to you, because then only you will write good answer. क्योंकि जब तक वो थॉट प्रोसेस में क्लैरिटी नहीं होगी तब तक वो आंसर में रिफ्लेक्ट नहीं हो पाएगा। एक और क्वेश्चन करें, उसके बाद फिर आगे बढ़ेंगे। राइट डाउन, अभी के कंटेम्पररी के हिसाब से क्वेश्चन लेते हैं। कैन यूटिलिटेरियनिज्म प्रोवाइड ए सेटिस्फैक्टरी, कैन यूटिलिटेरियनिज्म प्रोवाइड ए सेटिस्फैक्टरी resolution can utilitarianism provide a satisfactory resolution to moral dilemmas where the interests of the majority conflict with the interest of a minority, conflict of majority, interest of majority conflict, interest of majority conflict with the interest of minority. बताओ, आंसर दो। Answer it. You say yes. So Ajay is saying no. You are saying yes. How come it can give satisfactory? EWS reservation. How come EWS reservation you will fit into this question? कैसे बताओ? How? हाँ तो रिजर्वेशन तो जो यू कैन से मार्जिनल उसी को दिया जाएगा ना यार, किसी भी, उसमें मेजोरिटी माइनॉरिटी का थोड़ी इश्यू है। ओहो, रॉबिनहुड। देख रहे हो, क्राइम की और लार्जर वो बेनिफिट है, सिंघम बना रहा है ये। रॉबिनहुड जैसा एग्जांपल मत दो यार। See, this question is very simple. Since it is written minority versus majority, and can this ethical theory helps to solve certain problem, so you are in dilemma? No, not at all. Why here? Because it's not about majority versus minority. Here it's a very simple, is greatest good for the greatest number. Fine. Whenever it will always think of the majority. Utilitarianism really think of, you can say, in terms of minority, in terms of individual, in terms of anything. So it includes majority, and then it basically says it defends itself. It defends itself by saying that I'm not discarding or rejecting individuals. But utilitarianism says that since we talk about the numbers, we talk about the society as a whole, so the individual, minority, etc. are embedded in that. But they always talk about the utility of the consequences in terms of the number. But numbers are always talks about majority. Numbers majority का ही game है साहब. It's very simple. So here you need to talk about here in this type of question. What you do, you don't jump to the conclusion. You start with one thing, and that is the whole idea behind it. Number one. Then you go for the context in the question. Then you apply the whole idea in this context. Then take the inference or the conclusion out here, and then you conclude your answer. Don't jump to the conclusion. In the class also you see, you simply jump to the conclusion. कि नहीं ये ऐसा नहीं हो सकता है, ये रिजर्वेशन हो सकता है, ये no, not at all, not at all, not at all. You simply see the two things. What is the context? You apply the whole idea and the theory in that context, and then you foresee the consequences. You take the inference out, and then you make the final comment through conclusion. Yes, of course, yes. Of course, yes. See, it's not so. His question, Ajay's question is that shall we take a stand in the answer? Yes, of course, yes. Because here it's not about you. You cannot act as a journalist or activists or the politician. But your answer has to be based on certain fact, figures, etc. Number one. Number two, everywhere they don't expect you to take a stand. But at some places you need to take a stand. For example, if they ask, can it be? Do you agree? Critically analyze. It simply means there are elements of agreement and disagreement into it. So anywhere, in any question, wherever you find that there are elements of agreement and disagreement, there in any case you have to bring the clarity. Otherwise तुम्हारा आंसर ही नहीं बनेगा. वो तो कह ही रहे हैं ना साहब स्टैंड लीजिए, तभी तो क्लैरिटी आएगी. Because there are eventually they ask, do you agree? Critically analyze. It simply means there are element of agreement and disagreement both. आप उसको समझिए और कंक्लूजन में आप उस पर स्टैंड लीजिए, तो लेना ही पड़ेगा. आपने देखा होगा कई क्वेश्चन में वो पूछते हैं ना, डू यू एग्री? तो आप ये तो नहीं लिख सकते ना, मे नॉट। ऐसा तो लिख नहीं सकता ना। You have to take a stand. Stand does not mean going against the, you can say, the question or anything. Don't think कि भाई हम against the question चलेंगे तो यूपीएससी नाराज हो जाएगी। It's basically bring clarity in the answer. That's it. And substantiate your point. इसमें इसमें डिसएग्रीमेंट एग्रीमेंट का कोई इशू नहीं है। सिंस ही आस्क अबाउट दिस क्वेश्चन कि कम स्टैंड लेना चाहिए या नहीं लेना चाहिए, इसलिए मैंने कहा कि जहां एग्रीमेंट और डिसएग्रीमेंट होंगे, जैसे होते हैं बहुत जगह पे, जैसे है ना क्रिटिकल थिंकिंग, जब भी क्रिटिकल एनालिसिस जब भी होगी, क्रिटिकल एनालिसिस का मतलब ही है देयर आर सम और अदर एलिमेंट इन्वॉल्व इन द क्वेश्चन व्हिच डिमांड्स टू एनालाइज फर्दर टू मेक योर पॉइंट, क्योंकि उसमें एलिमेंट ऑफ डिसएग्रीमेंट एग्रीमेंट है, तभी वो क्रिटिकल एनालिसिस है। अदरवाइज वो सिंपली कहेंगे इलस्ट्रेट। In illustrate, there is nothing called agreement, disagreement. Illustrate simply means bring clarity through the examples. It's very simple. Always do remember, Ankit, there is a difference between explanation and analysis. Explain simply means unfold, and then you bring clarity through explanation. Unfold it. Analyze and critically analyze simply means you need to evaluate and examine, and then you finally make a comment. Because there is a difference between the meaning and the why. What does mean by democracy? Is simply explain it. But when you say why democracy, or there is a threat to democracy, then you need to analyze it. Means you are questioning, you are evaluating, you are making certain comment on the ground realities. आप ground reality को put करके और place करके वहां पे, तब आप comment करेंगे. This is how it appears. This is how it is like this. एक इसी से रिलेटेड क्वेश्चन लिख लो, इसी से रिलेटेड क्वेश्चन लिख लो, अपने घर में सोचना. जस्ट राइट डाउन वन मोर क्वेश्चन. What are the potential consequences of solely focusing on? What are the potential consequences of solely focusing on maximizing overall happiness? What are the potential consequences solely focusing on maximizing overall happiness? Without considering the rights and well-being of minority groups and well-being of minority groups? Question mark. Fine. Groups. कहाँ? वो तो करेंगे ना, क्लास में करेंगे गौतम. एक ब्रेक लेते हैं, ठीक है, 5 मिनट का, थोड़ा लंबा आज करेंगे तो, क्योंकि 2 दिन में मैं मॉरल थ्योरीज को खत्म करना चाहता हूँ. only 2 days, क्योंकि ये बार बार मैं कह रहा हूँ, दिस इज समथिंग व्हिच इज द मोस्ट क्रूशियल इन आंसर राइटिंग. दे मे नॉट डायरेक्टली आस्क फ्रॉम द मॉरल थ्योरीज, मे नॉट, पूछ भी सकते हैं, पूछा भी है उन्होंने, जॉन रॉल्स पूछा है, मैक्स वेबर पूछा है, तो पूछते हैं, वो पूछ सकते हैं. लेकिन ये एक यूनिट ऐसा है, और इसके बाद ह्यूमन वैल्यूज, आंसर राइटिंग का 50% काम हो गया. दैट्स इट. वो जितने भी कॉन्फ्लिक्ट और डिलेमास है ना, वो यहीं पे फंसे हुए हैं. केस स्टडी का भी जस्टिफिकेशन का पॉइंट यहीं पे है. उसके बाद के जितने भी यूनिट्स है ना, उसमें सिर्फ आपको कॉन्सेप्ट और उसका एप्लीकेशन देखते चले जाना है. उसमें उतना डिबेट नहीं है, उतने डिस्कशंस नहीं है, उतने कॉन्फ्लिक्ट नहीं है, उतने कंट्राडिक्शंस नहीं है. यहाँ पे है. यहाँ पे जानते हो क्यों है? बिकॉज ऑफ जस्ट वन रीजन. नो मॉरल थ्योरीज, no moral theory is complete in itself. I repeat my sentence, no moral theory is complete in itself. नो मॉरल थ्योरी इज कंप्लीट इन इटसेल्फ। जैसे ये क्वेश्चन दिया ना, इसी को एक क्वेश्चन लिख लो और लिखो, इसको मैं क्लैरिटी ले आता हूं। जस्ट राइट डाउन वन मोर क्वेश्चन। आर देयर alternative ethical theories? Are there alternative ethical theories? Or approaches that could offer a more satisfactory resolution, more satisfactory resolution to moral dilemmas involving conflicts between majority and minority interests, between majority and minority interests. Fine, just think over it. I make a promise to myself that in the class itself, I will bring the maximum clarity in answer writing by simply making the framework. और जो टेक्स्ट है उसको फ्लिप कर लो उधर से एक बार, दैट्स इट, एंड डू टेस्ट विथ मी, राइट? लिखो 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 लिखो, ठीक है? एक ब्रेक लेते हैं 10 मिनट का, फिर स्टार्ट करेंगे। यस so ये डिलेमा में फंस गया। करेक्ट सर कि कोई मिडिल ग्राउंड है माइनॉरिटी और मेजोरिटी के बीच में, तो अंकित करेंगे मिडिल ग्राउंड में निकालेंगे, और मिडिल ग्राउंड के लिए ही नेक्स्ट लास्ट क्वेश्चन है। ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड, देयर इज no moral theory is complete in itself. It does not mean we can ignore, discard, or reject any moral theory. It has its importance. It has its implications according to the demand and the context and the situations. तो कई थ्योरीज हैं जो कॉम्प्लीमेंट्री और सप्लीमेंट्री के रूप में यूज की जाती है, और देखो उसके बाद आपकी क्लैरिटी कैसे आती है, एग्जांपल्स कैसे आते हैं आपके पास, ठीक है?